What happens next is one of the most harrowing things we've captured on camera so far.
Hello? I brought pizza. How about I take a slice?
So, sometime about a couple years ago at this point, I made a video about Chris Hansen returning to the whole child predator catching thing after taking some time off with things with True Crime Daily kind of falling through, and then he had an arrest for some sort of, he cashed a faulty check is basically what it was. I mean, when I heard he got arrested, I was like, please don't be for what I think it is. Thankfully it wasn't, and it was just kind of something that got done, got over with, and got swept under the rug pretty quickly, as it should, because it's not that big of a deal when you look back at it. And when I made that video, I got a lot of hate for it because I don't think my points were coming through in the right way, because I've always been a huge Chris Hansen fan when it comes to, the predator catching stuff, because I, like many people, don't like child predators. I don't understand how their mindset works with, being attracted to children and all this stuff. And I don't understand how even when they know Chris Hansen or know it's a sting, they still show up because I guess their curiosity level is at an all-time high. Basically, what I was getting at in that video, which is now deleted, by the way, I deleted it because I got tired of seeing comment after comment after comment just completely missing my point. I was trying to say how with Chris Hansen's return, it just seemed a little off and more, the quality just seemed worse from where it was. I mean, I know he was kind of, trying to start things back up again, so he may not have had the material that he has now, but when he came back and it first started, oh my god, cool, you're catching predators, but the content is so boring to the point where I didn't even want to watch because it wasn't as interesting or as entertaining as it was, and Chris also wasn't necessarily as entertaining as it was. But then you bring in True Blue, and now there's a lot of controversy around that, because at first when we were getting these videos on True Blue, they were free, downloaded to YouTube, and now you get a free episode every here and there, but for the most part, if you want to watch every single episode of Takedown with Chris Hansen, I think is what it's called, you have to go behind a paywall and pay for the streaming service that is True Blue TV, which I do not pay for because I'm just like, well, I already pay for enough streaming services, and if the only thing I'm going to watch on that streaming service is Takedown with Chris Hansen, well, I will thankfully wait for a free episode to come on YouTube, and I'm sure there's people out there that'll react to full episodes on True Blue anyway. And looking back at that video too, I wasn't in the right headspace. I was definitely going through a lot at this point in time, and even when I was, responding to comments, it wasn't necessarily the way I would respond a lot. I mean, people were literally calling me a pedophile, thinking that I was defending the pedophiles in this case, when literally that was far from what I was doing. I was criticizing the way Chris Hansen went about doing things, but still saying, I love that he's doing this. I hope he keeps doing it. I just need to see some improvement with the content, even back then with To Catch a Predator, sometimes the content was just boring, and we really only remember the, I guess you can say memeable predators, and it seems like now he's just trying to chase those memes, but recently, as he's got involved with True Blue, I feel like the quality's gotten better, and they're not trying to look for the next, here's the next meme in the show. They're actually taking it seriously again, and it's made me enjoy the full content. And really, when you look at it, it's just the same as all of his other shows, and yet people still come in and show up. I mean, they have the Sting House, there's a decoy, and then Chris Hansen will come out, and even though a majority of these guys know who they are, they sit down and talk to Chris Hansen, even though legally they don't have to because he is not a police officer, but that doesn't matter anyway because they're going to get arrested, because even if they try to leave the house, the police are outside waiting for them. Which, looking back at it, it just kind of makes that South Park episode a lot funnier when Chris Hansen was in it. He was telling people to take a seat, and they're all getting up. They're like, no, I shouldn't, but then they sit down. Even when he got Cartman to do it, Cartman's like, how the hell does he do it?
Why don't you take a seat?
Oh, I don't want to take a seat.
Have a seat.
No, I'm just gonna go.
Take a seat right over there. How does he do that?
Well, I mean, you look at it now and you go, oh, I see where South Park got that joke, because he's literally had guys come from outside of the Sting House inside to talk with him, only to go back out and be arrested by the cops. Like, that's so funny. Now, that's more common in the older episodes. Nowadays, they try to make sure that the Predator is in the Sting House before they go about doing anything with the investigation. But yeah, that's probably the video I regret the most, at least one of the ones that I recently made, because my point wasn't coming across right, because I wasn't in the right headspace. I don't think I was explaining stuff well enough, and I understand where people's criticisms of that video came from, and that's why I couldn't necessarily keep it up, because when I looked back at it and I watched it, I said, man, I could have came across differently with it, and now that I see that the content Chris Hansen and True Blue are putting out have improved since then, I redact a lot of the stuff that I said in that video, and I realized that, you know, Chris Hansen was coming back from a clean slate, so obviously it wasn't going to look pretty from the beginning, but once he started getting acclimated with things and got a network to pick things up, things got better, because trust me, when he started to pick it up before Takedown with Chris Hansen, it was just, I don't even know what it was. It was sloppy, it was boring, like, I don't even know what he was trying to attempt with it before Takedown. There was like a little, like, in between Hansen versus Predator and Takedown, he had like 3 episodes of like this comeback show that he was trying to do on YouTube, and it was just boring, and definitely should have went about it in a different way, sort of like he does now, whereas that one just seemed, I don't know, that one seemed a little more forced than these other shows do. But, you know, I'm still glad that even after all these years, it's been like 20-something years since To Catch a Predator has debuted, and Chris Hansen is still out here catching these guys, and is just so interested in getting these guys off the street, prosecuting them, because a lot of the copycats out there are kind of annoying. I mean, Skeeter Gene can be okay, and then you got those guys, Dads Against Predators, who just kind of, you know, slap the Predators up.
You said maybe.
That's not affirmative or disavowed.
You keep pointing that finger at me, and you're gonna get your ringed. Now, maybe isn't a good answer to try to pick up little boys, is it? Is maybe a good answer? We gotta trying to take off here. Going down. Cole, he's trying to pick up little kids. Oh, I missed. This man's trying to pick up a little boy on the internet.
Which, don't get me wrong, if there's anybody that should be physically assaulted, it's child predators. But as Chris Hansen has stated and pointed out before, those cases don't usually get prosecuted because those people are taking matters into their own hands rather than working with the police in this situation. It just, you know, you can look at it from both directions and whatnot, whether you think it should be, you know, prosecuted, go through the legal system, or, you know, these predators should be handled by just beating the shit out of them. Look, I'm for both. I really don't care. But at the same point in time, if you want to get these predators off the streets, then you want to be able to have the prosecution go through and then be sent to jail rather than something be thrown out because, well, they met up at this Walmart and they slapped them up and didn't even, you know, bring the cops into it. So, I don't know. Those are kind of the ones that I look at and go, I don't necessarily think this is what we meant by go and catch predators. Chris Hansen's still doing it right, and there are other, you know, predator catching channels that are doing it correctly, but when you look at Chris Hansen, the OG who's been doing it for a while now, and the fact that he's still out there doing his thing, I commend him for it, because he could have stopped years ago, or this could just be done because people know who he is and they wouldn't be showing up. But again, when curiosity kills the cat, it can go on forever. It's like the show Impractical Jokers. You would think with that show being almost 15 years old at this point, that people would, you know, see them while they're filming the show and be like, aren't you those guys from that show? Which does happen occasionally, but the fact that they're still able to do the show and trick a lot of people and do the, you know, skits and stuff that they do, it's still pretty funny because they've been around for so long, they've gained this big following, and yet they're still able to make a show and do the same goofy stuff that they've done, despite people knowing who they are. But yeah, that's basically it for me. If I could redo that video over, I would, but obviously it's kind of too late now, although I kind of did it here to begin with. But yeah, stay safe out there, and I will catch you all in the next one.